great evening. Welcome to Why Should I Be Ashamed? I'm Sheila Calvert, your host. I'm the author of the book, Why Should I Be Ashamed? Tonight, we are in for a great conversation with you. We're going to talk about, is there recovery? Is there recovery for us all? Family, friends, globally. Is there recovery for you? Will you do me one favor? Like, share, and subscribe tonight, because this conversation needs to go to the nation. I'll see you right back after you like and share. Why should I be ashamed? Thank you for coming in with us tonight. Thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing to Why Should I Be Ashamed? I appreciate you. Thank you once again for those of you that have been purchasing books. Also, you have been just giving donations because you know that this is an important conversation and we want to keep it moving. Let me share with you tonight, is there recovery? Is there recovery for you? Is there recovery for me? Is there really recovery for our family, our friends, just globally? That's the question tonight. I'm asking you, do you really believe there is recovery? Well, I had a conversation with a great woman a couple weeks ago, and also I was talking to someone this evening about recovery, what it took for her to recover. Well, I asked her, had she ever been abused? And she said no, but her child had been abused. Her child had been abused from the age of 5 until about 18 years old. She came and told her mother that, "Mom, I have been sexually abused." We really didn't get into the details because I don't like to really say he said, she said. So we really didn't talk about the daughter's experience, but I talked about the mother. So the mother said she got this information from her daughter, and I won't go into details, but she did say she's going to come on our show and have this discussion openly shortly. But I asked her, what was that like when her daughter came and told her that she had been sexually abused by her own birth father? And she told me, in the moment of the conception of the conversation, can you believe that she broke down right there where she was? She said she began to just begin to cry, and she couldn't stop crying, and she couldn't stop crying. And she was at work, and her job released her from her work that day. And as she went on and she continued on, and she went to, try to continue her daily life, and she had to pick up one of her children, and they drove her directly to the hospital. Now, I'm talking about a person that had not been raped, but just heard what had happened to her child, and the shock of it, the shame of it, the hurt of it. She broke down. She said she couldn't stop crying. When she got to the hospital, they admitted her. And they admitted her not to the psych ward or the place where people have like mental instabilities or anything, but they admitted her into what did she call it? Well, it was some kind of trauma unit for depression. She said she she shut down after that for 6 months. It just was the shock of it. And I asked her what was her feeling. She said at that moment she felt extreme pain. She said she began to ache. Her head just began to ache. She said it felt like she was hit with a slug hammer. I just want you to think about that. She said it felt like someone had just took a slug hammer and hit her in her head. Now, for some of you, that may seem a little dramatic. That may be just a little bit dramatic, but for some of us that understand, it is very traumatic. She said they put her on 4 different types of antidepressants. She said she broke down and cried and she couldn't stop. She said but I asked her, in all that, was there recovery? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I really want to share with you. And in talking with her, I asked her, when did she come to that place where she could laugh? When did she come to that place where she could really enjoy life again, where she could love again? Is there a such place? And I want to reveal to you tonight, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I know some of you are in total silence. Some of you are hiding behind all kind of things, pulpits. You're hiding behind your big, beautiful houses. You're hiding behind your brand new washing machine. Maybe you just got a brand new Mercedes and you're hiding. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You cannot recover in hiding, in pretension. You have to be true to your own self, true to your own feelings, as we talked about last week, true to your own emotions. And a lot of these topics sound alike, but they are so, so different. I really want to reach out to you tonight, those of you that are in silence, those of you that are afraid, those of you that are ashamed. Let's uncover the shame tonight. I believe there is recovery for our friends, for our families, for the globe. I believe there is recovery. So, how do I know that? Well, we witness people still moving on, still dreaming. There's many women, and to name a few. How about Oprah Winfrey? She's told us her story, but she's moved on. Gabrielle Union says she was in Chicago at a shoe store, and someone came in and took advantage of her in the shoe store. But look at the beauty of her life. She's moved on. How about Lady Gaga, highly successful in the music industry? I know that you all love celebrities, and it seems like the celebrities are speaking and bold. And some of you, just because you don't have titles, just because you don't have fame, it does not mean that you don't have worth and value to this topic, to this subject. You need to come with that. You need to come and open and say their names. Ashley Judd, and that's just to name a few. Sheila Calvert. I feel that I have recovered, and oftentimes I feel that I'm still in recovery, because as I was speaking with this lady and she was sharing with me how her child was abused and the shock of it, I began to imagine how my mother must have felt when I came to her and shared my story with her. So I want you to know there is recovery. What is recovery? What is the meaning of recovery? It's the return, I say, to get your mind back, to get out of those dead thoughts, to get out of that craziness, to stop trying to cover up, to get out of the shame of it all. Recovery is return to the normal state of health and mind and strength. The action or process of regaining possession or control over something stolen. That's recovery. Taking back what belongs to you. Any of you out there has recovered? Send me some hearts. Send me some likes. And if you bold enough, just say your name. If you're bold enough, and that's gonna set you free, just say your name. Something stolen or lost. And I always have to say, you recover when you know that something has been taken from you without your consent. And we do a lot of things in the name of love, in the name of power, in the name of relationships. We stay in a lot of pain in the name of love, in the name of what people say, in the name of church. We just stay in pain. I remember a lady was going through something really tragic in her relationship with her husband, and she was just staying, and he was more mentally abusive, more neglecting. And she was in the church, and she said, well, she wouldn't get a divorce or she wouldn't separate because she wanted to do it for the people. She's trying to keep up an image for the people. Well, honey, an unhappy image is not a good picture for the people. We need to see the real deal. And I'm going to talk about some of those old cliches too. I don't want to get ahead of myself. What happened during recovery when there is a trigger? So most of us that has been raped or sexually abused, it doesn't matter what time span. It could be 10 years ago. I know people that has never talked about it, and they're in their 70s, you all. They're in their 60s. And most of us we're still in recovery, and we have triggers. Can I ask you a question tonight, ladies and gentlemen? James Newman, what is your trigger? What is your trigger tonight? A trigger that set off your memory. Something that sets you off, or give you what we call a flashback, a videotape of the past. A person taking you back to an event or original trauma and causing an individual to experience overwhelming emotions. Those are triggers. Physical symptoms also, or thoughts with an emotional intensified intensity similar to the time of the trauma. So certain things can trigger you to get you all the way back, to get you feeling angry, to get you feeling stressful, feeling dead again. Remember, some people, when they were raped or abused, they just felt dead inside. And you know, a lot of times people around you, they don't understand it. They just want you to get up and start dancing again, get up and start cooking again, get up and start loving again, get up and start preaching again, get up and start praying again. Just get up from here. They don't want you to process it, and they want you to get up. But sometimes you feel dead. You feel the hate. You feel the shame. You feel the murder. The memory of the brain does not differentiate what happened back in 1970 to today. It all looks the same. But you know what? I come to realize it's how we deal with it. It's how we cope with it. If I have a flashback of something that happens in my childhood, which often I really don't, but I hear a lot of people, and sometimes when I'm talking to people and they have not overcome, or as we would say, delivered, they haven't gotten through it, sometimes they'll shut up and they shut down right then. It's like it's too much for them to even hear themselves talk about these things. And sometimes it triggers. Even these conversations that we having here on Why Should I Be Ashamed? It may trigger you, but that is not our motive. We are motivated to encourage you, to strengthen you, to help you to break through the shame, the hurt, the pain, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the quietness, the silence. We're not trying to just march and keep reminding you of pain. And if you have a trigger, what that says to me, you're still alive and you can recover. So what happens when we have triggers? What are some of the things that you can notice about yourself? Maybe you go into a dark place. Maybe you close all the curtains, close all the doors. You don't want to communicate. You go in silent. You could have unexplained crying. You know anybody around you just crying for no reason? Crying spells. You may feel fearful. I remember just really being intimidated by people of power that even look similar to the person that brought abuses in my life. I remember being in environments with them, and I would just almost internally grieve. Some of you know what I'm talking about, when the family wants you to come around anyway, and it just grieves you from the inside, and it's like you're in torment. That's what triggers are. You can become irritable, frustrated. I remember a young lady in my life, she would easily get frustrated all the time by everything and some people still that is processing their pain, they get moody. I have people that I love, but they are so moody, but I understand. It comes from the pain, it comes from the thought. And that's why what I do, I try not to do a lot of overthinking. You cannot think for me. You cannot think for that person. You cannot process anyone out. Everybody has to get their own recovery. You cannot overthink. Everybody is be paranoid. And that's another thing. You can become paranoid. You can have intrusive thoughts. You ever have thoughts that come to you that you don't want, and you just wish where did they come from? Intrusive thoughts. And you have to really learn, everybody's triggers are personal, but it's more important not that we are triggered, and some people are triggered just by it can be an atmosphere. I remember every time I would go to Chicago, I would feel a trigger. And everybody, come on. And I just would try to get back so quick. Get me back to Minnesota. Some of you don't want to go back home because you know why? It brings that trigger. Some of mama wonder why you don't want to come over for special days, holidays, because there's a trigger and nobody is paying attention. And when you have been abused, you look for that support. You look for that love. You look for someone to care. And you don't want to go into those atmospheres. It's almost like being in war. I don't know. I've seen war movies, and they're stepping in these fields, and there's a mine. And they can just step on it and click, and there goes the bomb. And people don't know what's going on, but you never cared enough to address my issue. And then when I go off, well, you say, oh, she's always going off. And a lot of times those are triggers that we can recover from. Have you ever seen something or someone that set you off, that reminds you? I look at our society today, and it seems that in the propaganda on the television of black men, just trying to make us afraid. I know I'm digressing, but trying to make us afraid and put your purse down, and it sends a trigger because a lot of this is stuff that we're feeding our mindsets, and we're being fed triggers. Triggers can be a smell. You remember a smell. I remember when those young men that went through with one of the pastors, and they said the smell, they just remember, because your brain keeps the memory. There's sound, there's touch, there's music. You might hear a song these are triggers, verbal words, certain words that are said. Send me some hearts. Am I touching one of your triggers? And I want you to know it's okay, but it's how you cope with the trigger. What are you doing? You may see pictures, movies, someone that resembles the abuser. And the reason I'm naming all these, because sometimes when you're triggered, you don't even know. You just know every time I see him or her, something goes off on the inside of me. And that let you know that you're still in recovery. You need some help. You need to find a way to deal with it. For me, time and strength. With time and with fellowship and communication, the triggers became meaningless to me. After I found out who I was, after I found out that I didn't have to stay around, after I found out that I didn't have to be a part of a family. And you know, a lot of times they'll say, you think you're better than us. No, darling, you don't know my story. I am better than the environment that you have created for me to come into and act like nothing has happened, and you're better than that. And there's triggers when we go into these atmosphere. So they became meaningless to me, less powerful. You must and you can eliminate triggers. You can eliminate triggers. How do we eliminate triggers? You got to less focus on the event and focus on your present goals. You have to see things differently. We always talk about putting the blame where the blame goes. You can't blame everyone and everything around you. And when those triggers set off, you may have to focus. I try not to get too churchy. I know, we believe in prayer, so we always go to prayer. But then after prayer, what are our works? You got to take your mind and think on things that are good. Please don't tell me you've never had a good day. Well, maybe you should get up early in the morning and just look out in the earth realm and look at the trees and look at the things that you delight in. Find something. You don't know something, then you have to seek within yourself to find something good and come out of these dark places. And yes, oftentimes we want better. We want things to happen. We want better life. We want miracles in our life. But there is a part that we have to participate. You cannot sit in the corner and say, oh, I'm going to get recovery. You can't even take a pill. I remember when my mother died, the first thing the doctors gave me some pills to medicate. And a friend of mine, she said, Sheila, don't take those pills, because after a year of you, and I'm not saying anything's wrong if that's your process. And she says, because you're going to have to grieve. See, I didn't want to go through the grieving process. And so I decided that I will not take those pills, and I went on and just processed the grief. And now I've recovered. I can talk about my mother. I can laugh about our memory. I can laugh about the fun days, and I didn't have guilty feelings. And so I had to. You have to dive in and deal with what is really going on. You also have to think about how current are your issues. And sometimes people want to say, oh, honey, that was 20 years ago. But if you haven't dealt with it, that was like it was yesterday. That was like it was today. You cannot assess my experience and my issues, and we need to stop doing that. Stop trying to assess someone. Well, what I did, I can give you recommendations, and I share my story, not to say that you take that same journey, but I just want you to know you may have to take another road, but I know that there's options. I know there's people that has recovery covered. I know you can look up and live. What did Maya Angelou say? Still I rise. She had recovered also. So you think about how current is your issue. Because oftentimes those of us that had childhood trauma, you may never, ever be able to have a good childhood. And we're not going to become women and keep acting like children. And that's another trigger also. Or maybe I won't say that's a trigger. What am I trying to say? When people haven't had a childhood and they get grown and then they want to keep acting like children because they don't want to recover. They want to have that experience, and they want you to push them on the swing, and they like, honey, you're just too big for the swing. The swing is going to break down. When I was a child, I did childish things. Now that you are an adult, you have to become an adult. Hey, it happens. Some of us didn't have great childhoods. Some of us only maybe had periods of great childhood. Some of us didn't have great adolescence. But let me say this to you. You can recover. You have to do the work. How did I recover? through lectures, through believing. First, I had to believe that I am worthy. You are worthy. I did lectures. I went to support groups. I went to many workshops. And the road is different for you, but there is transformation, but you have to have participation, right? If you want to be transformed, even you remember the little transforming cars as we twist and turn them back into their original state, you have to twist and turn and find ways to get your mental health back, your physical health back. Some scars will always have, but we can continue to move on. You have to participate, and you have to be very intentional in receiving recovery. You have to be intentional in receiving healing. You know, if you go to the hospital, you have to be intentional. You have to do your part. They do their part. Another part I want to talk about in this struggle as we recover, you have to relieve yourself of guilt. We never talk about it, but I heard Oprah Winfrey say, "It feels good." Now that was a trigger. It feels good getting raped. It feels good getting molested. It feels good getting taken advantage of. It feels good when it wasn't consensual. That's not what she meant. She meant that you still had a sexual experience, maybe emotionally, maybe physically, but you have to get over the guilt of it all. You know, we often have done things that felt good, but it was wrong, and we had to get over the guilt of it. Have you ever drank too much alcohol and the next day you heard that you were so drunk and you did this and you did that? You have to get over it. Things happen. Life happens. Bad things happens to everyone. And maybe you never have experienced a bad sexual experience. But I want you all to calm down and keep cool and allow your family members, your loved ones to express themselves. Just like at death. You notice at death, the first thing, I don't know if you ever been around somebody really closely, first thing you experience oftentimes is anger. I say oftentimes because everybody doesn't do it. But you experience anger, and it's the same thing with sexual abuse. You don't want people to get angry, but that's part of the recovery. And get rid of the guilt. You have to let go of the guilt. Whether your experience sexually, you connected to a feeling, you connected to an emotion of that person, you connected. And I think a lot of times I hear, when I talk to women, I hear that they become like double-minded. What's that word I'm looking for? Bipolar is what everybody's calling it now. Because one mind, I love my father. The other mind, I hate my rapist. One mind, I love my brother. The other mind, I hate my rapist. You know, there's another word for that when people hold you hostage and do things to you, then they start feeding you. What's that word, you guys? Like if a person hold you hostage with a gun or something and they keep you so long, and then you start liking them because they're feeding you, and what's that word? No. Well, you know it's gonna come to me tomorrow. Then I'll put it in on the page. Hi, Reginald. Hey, do we have any questions? Anybody out there talking? Hey, Tramika. Send some hearts if you understand that some of the things that I'm talking about. You can recover. What is that word? It's you know, when men have kidnapped women and they've kept them, and then the woman start falling in love with her perpetrator. Y'all know what that word. It's I got it right in here somewhere. If you all know the word I'm talking about, send it to me. So Another thing you may have to do it in your recovery. And it is very, very hard to do. You may have to cut some people off. You may have to find you a new family. And especially people that make you feel guilty about how they process. Because, see, some of these people are so shut up in their bowels. They're so shut up in their emotions. They're so shut up in their feelings. And then when they see you out expressing yourself, taking your stand, seeing the Me Too movement, seeing people tell their truth, and then they're looking, why don't everybody, that's a trigger for them, why don't everybody be quiet? Because if you keep talking, I might just purge and let mine out. And sometimes they want you to shut up, but don't let anybody put you in bondage when you have been set free. Don't let nobody make you feel guilty. That's part of your recovery, is standing up. You're going to have to stand up. Anyone that report abuse should not be questioned in the sense where they are being blamed. And that's what we have a backwards way of dealing with sexual abuse. Why you want to tell? Why you want to talk about it? Why you want to send your uncle to jail? Why you want to send your auntie to jail? And most of the time what we do in our families, we do not tell. So don't let nobody put you in blame. Stockholm. That's what it is. Stockholm syndrome. Hey, these guys, they're helping me. Thank you. Stockholm syndrome. That's when you're supposed to hate the person, but some reason you love them. It's crazy. Can I share something with you? I'm still going through something here. I seen a picture of the molester that took my virginity, that raped me in my sleep, and I woke up and I had been giving my mother warning signals. I have a picture of him walking me down the aisle in my white dress. We didn't have a conversation about it. He just showed up to my wedding like that's what he was supposed to do. Now you're my daddy. And you can look on my face, the grievance, the internalized. And I won't show the picture because I don't want to make him famous. And I don't even know what I want to do with this picture. And that wasn't no Stockholm syndrome, but I hated him. But my mother stayed with him. What do you do? And then, my story, if you read Why Should I Be Ashamed? I ran to the streets. I was from house to house. I didn't know what to do. I'm only 16. What do? I'm out in the streets. I'm going to daily labor. I'm running in and out of stay at this cousin's house, stay at this friend's house. And I don't even think nobody knew. And guess what? When I showed up somewhere, maybe 2 weeks later at my mom's, they at a party or something, and the family is around, no one says nothing. They don't. It's like they don't even care. Nobody. They don't know what to say. I guess they didn't say anything, and I just was a survivor. But so when I seen my mother continue to be in relationship with this man, it almost made me feel like I had to continue to be in relation with him. She told us to tell the judge that he didn't do anything to us. So that's what we did. And so here I am years later getting married, and here he comes giving me away at my wedding, and I didn't want it. But I was in such silence, such abuse, such fear, I was intimidated by him. I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed every time I seen him. I would scringe into it, but no one paid attention. I'm only a girl. No one said anything. So get over the guilt. I have to get over that picture. I think I'm just going to cut him out of it. Because I don't want to, so you may ask a question. Have I forgiven him? Yes, but some things, it's just not, I don't know. I might cut the picture out today, and 10 years later, I think, I didn't have to go through all that. But it might feel good to cut him off of my picture right now. That's how I feel. Because you never should have been standing there in the first place. And some of you will not express your truth. and you just go through the motions, and we let these perpetrators drag us right back in to the cycle, then it happens again in your household. And yes, he did ask for forgiveness. Yes, he did say he's sorry. But the point, my life, it's just has been traumatized. So I have to recover from these things and not let them make me vicious or violent or angry or bitter. I realize that I can recover. So don't allow anyone to back you into these corners. Don't allow anyone to assess your experience until they walk 2 miles, 8 days, 20 minutes, and 15 seconds in your shoes. Don't ask me where I got those numbers from. I'm just saying. If you haven't walked a mile in my shoes, honey, don't tell me you know what I've been through. No, because your experience is totally different from mine. We must move away from these traditions. And I cannot tell you about the cliches. They don't work. You know the cliche, what you do in Vegas, stay in Vegas. That doesn't work in sexual abuse. The cliche, blood is thicker than water. If it's my blood, he really didn't abuse you. He really didn't mean it. We can't help what our children do. Honey, that ain't nothing but a cover up. It's a crime. Call the police. What goes on in this house stays in this house. Honey, these secrets must be revealed. These cliches is just old, and we got them. And I don't want to talk against the church. I love the church. I love righteousness. But when you talk about if you don't have a black eye, you have not been abused. If can't nobody see your abuse, then you're really not abused. That is a cliche. That does not work in sexual abuse. You wasn't there. You don't ever have to see it. It is my truth. It is my story. It is her or his truth. It's their story. So be it. But you don't get to dictate to anyone that it didn't happen. That cliche. And what is that other one? Just get over it. Just get over it. That's what we're doing. We're just getting over it, talking about it, sharing our story, being honest with ourselves. I know a young lady used to take a hot scalding hot bath, and the first time I was like, she used the whole bar of soap. That it doesn't wash with soap or Avon or perfume or 273 or any of those fragrances. No, it doesn't wash like that. It comes through processing your mental health, through truth, acknowledging your pain, expressing your feelings, and being stronger and getting through it. You are able to cope. I want to tell you, you can cope tonight. You can have bigger dreams. You can move forward. And a lot of us, we think that we're moving forward. If you're still getting angry all the time, if you still want to fight, you still want to commit murder. I used to concentrate on how can I just, you think about being a 16-year-old kid, and all I remember we had was some lighter fluid around where, how can I just throw the lighter fluid and light them on fire? Now, if you're thinking about murdering someone, it's wrong. Then you become a criminal. And so we have to lend our mind to think on things that are good. We have to function without blame. Function without beating yourself up. You got to move into an area, and you cannot use other things, alcohol, drugs, sex, and old things that have the same things that destroy you. You cannot use that to try to dull your feelings and make you cope. You have to stand and not quit. You have to stand and not quit. You have to stand and move forward. You have to, I believe these conversations, they are helping. People are calling and they are recovering. They are not taking on the blame where it should not be. They are healing and they are recovering. Reginald, an eye for an eye, that's another cliche. You know we can't do that, and I know that we're not even. I don't even have the heart, and that's rage. That's part of rage. That's why we gotta reduce the rage, reduce the anger, because if you do an eye for an eye, then you're gonna wind up in jail. Why should I become what a perpetrator is? Why should I become what my rapist is? Why should I become a murderer because you're a murderer? Is difference in self-defense now if you're going to run up on somebody and they're in a particular situation. But if I go find you and I go hunt you down, those things are taken to the law. You have to take them to the law. Thank you, Reginald, for your comment. Anybody else have a comment tonight? Please like and share. I want to get like about 700 people on here tonight. I think our highest rating was when Bishop was on here. We had about 700. Let's do that again, or we're going to have to get Bishop to come back and talk to us let's just keep the momentum moving. I want to say thank you once again for liking and sharing and coming and hearing these. These are hard subjects. And I was thinking, I know people say, why do they, honey, Broderick, I know they say, why do they have this same subject? But we're coming from different arenas, different conversations. But they don't say that about Shannon when he be on the television talking about football, him and what's his name? Him and Skip, Shannon and Skip, every day they're talking about football. Y'all don't say anything about that, and it's fun. I love to hear Shannon talk, but I'm talking about something that is relevant to our nation, to our generation, to our children, to our people, to bring healing. I want to see some men come forth. And you are not emasculating, but what you're doing, you're helping some of our sons to stand up and say they have survived too. They are in recovery. They have recovered. They still are men. Yes, you are. So let me share. Would you do me one favor? If you don't have your copy of Why Should I Be Ashamed, make sure you get a copy. Make sure that you inbox me, your address, and they'll put the information. There it is. There's the information up there. And hey, we're just being strong. So make sure you get a copy of Why Should I Be Ashamed. Okay, I'm going to read on page 51. How are you enjoying this evening? I'm very grateful that women come privately and talk to me oftentimes, and soon when we get off the show, they'll talk to me and they'll share their stories, and they're getting breakthroughs, they're getting healings, they're beginning to stand up, they're dreaming again, they're renewing themselves, they're coming into their own, they're moving forward, they're not looking back, they're not regressing to childhood or regressing back to going backwards in life. They're moving forward. Because you can't do life over like that. And everybody that I know, every older age adult, they always say once they live their life, they want to do it again. We always want to do over, huh? On page 51, it says, an undefined love. Christmas was upon us, and it was supposed to be a very special time for us. Even though we practically lived in poverty, we had a great expectation. My brother got a nice train set that he loved, but unfortunately, Laos loved it too. He put it high up on the shelf so my brother couldn't get to it and would only take it down when he wanted to play with it. Choo-choo train. I got lots of candies and a little brown-haired baby doll with blue eyes, and my sister got a blonde one. We spent the next few weeks coordinating tea parties with dolls. Our imaginations had no limit. I would be in a world outside of what I known, especially in moments that I could even be white like my baby doll. That's a whole nother story. And no one could ever hit her. We were always looking for a way to escape our lives or pretend as if nothing bad had ever happened to us or mama. Holidays were no exception for my mother's boyfriend's wrath. At Halloween, we trick-or-treated for hours, but when we returned, Laos dumped all the bags of candies and took what he wanted. Now, I guess some of that was supposed to be a good thing. So I'm going to stop right here tonight. These conversations are bittersweet. But the thing about it, I want you to know there is recovery. You are not alone. Don't ever be embarrassed by the trauma that you've experienced. And some of you have caused trauma. And it's time for you to be forgiven also. It's time for you to get healing and stop going out hurting people. You can recover. You can renew your mind. Seek help. Seek answers. Call the hotlines. Read books. Find a way to renew your mind. And above all, we know prayer changes everything. Find people that will not embarrass you. You may have to talk to 10 people before you get to that one that can give you some good, sane, good counsel. You need counsel. If you are doing these things and adding to people's lives, hurt and pain, you need counsel. Once again, I'm Sheila Calvert. I thank you so much for listening, liking, and sharing, and coming in to meet us here. Meet us here once again on next Tuesday. And if you know an officer that would love to get on here and talk, we would like to talk with him and share the business. I would like to hear somebody come from the legal standpoint, doctors, professionals that can really enlighten us and help us to understand the extremes and the hurt. Because sometimes I know I make it light, but that's just my way of recovery. So there is recovery. Thank you once again for coming in and for liking and share. Have a great evening. We'll see you on Thursday night with Pastor Calvert with his Bible study. On Sunday morning, we'll be here with worship and praise, and back again on Tuesday. Thank you so much.